Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on high performance computing. Today, my guest is from DDN. We have Molly Rector. She is the CMO and the EVP of Product Management at the company. Molly, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for having us. I guess this is your vision tour, something a little different for summer of 2015, and I thought we could just get into it and tell us more.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for giving us the opportunity. So myself and DDN CEO Alex Buzari have been out on the road for the last week or so, going to different cities throughout the U.S. and heading out into Europe next month to give an updated tour on and really just message on what DDN is doing within the data center, both in traditional supercomputing, traditional HPC applications, as well as more the enterprise high-performance environments. And so if you jump on to slide 2, really what we're talking about, if you think about how storage companies are doing today in today's market, the conditions that are leading to some kind of difficult times for certain companies and just fantastic growth for other companies, DDN is one of those companies that has had the opportunity to not just grow in a top-line revenue perspective over the last couple of years, but also grow in the markets that we're penetrating, and a whole bunch of net new customers are coming over to DDN to leverage our high-performance storage technologies to accelerate their workflows. And where it's very traditional in the supercomputing environment that they think about data is their business, the more value they can extract from the data they're creating, the more they can accelerate science, accelerate research. That's becoming more and more common throughout the enterprise as well. And so DDN is really rapidly growing in the markets globally that are using data to accelerate their businesses. If you jump onto the next slide, on slide 3, you can see just a summary of the kinds of markets that DDN is playing in. All of these data markets have one thing in common, and it really is that they're looking at not just how do they use data for long-term retention to look back into the past, but also to use it for analytics to be able to do predictive investment in the financial services, predictive research in the genomics market on how do you solve genetic diseases in infants more quickly. Those types of things are really common in these markets. And the DDN technology and what we're able to deliver with our solutions with really rapid small I/O, highest IOPS in the market, combined with great throughput for those bigger files, all in a single solution, are leading to these markets realizing that they can leverage one DDN system to take care of both their caching, their high I/O, highly transactional environments, and use the same system for their longer-term unstructured data storage. So instead of having to go out and buy an all-flash array for one use, a scale-out NAS for another use, and perhaps an object store for the cloud, they can leverage a single DDN system to solve all of those problems. So that convergence in the data center is an area that we're really able to address to simplify the data center while also accelerating it. So if you jump onto slide 4, what we're really going out and talking to the market about is what does DDN have in our technology offering that's solving these problems, and not just looking backwards at what products were announced over the last year or two that were leading to this great market expansion, but what do we have coming out in the coming year? And we really want folks who are looking at how they're restructuring their data centers, if they're putting RFPs on the street for 2016 projects, to have a glimpse into the kinds of technology that are going to be available from DDN to help address their data-intensive environments. So we're kind of doing what we're calling a sneak preview of the announcements that we have coming out this fall that are focused specifically into supercomputing, but also into the enterprise environment by expanding out the feature sets that we have in our solutions. And we'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. So if you look at slide 5, we have a new platform that we will be delivering several different kinds of solutions on in the coming year. The internal name for it is our Wolf Creek platform, and it's taking advantage of all the latest interconnects, all the latest SSD and cache technologies to deliver just an incredibly large amount of performance in a single box. So the performance specs are a 4U system that can deliver over 60 gigabytes a second of throughput, simultaneously in that same system able to deliver over 5 million IOPS. If you look at the bullets on the slide there, we're also talking about virtual machines, which is a bit new for DDN, that We've always looked at application landscapes in the HPC market that really didn't go into the virtualization space quite as much. But as we're continuing to be adopted in a broader set of the data center, and also as we just look at our customers are walking down the data center aisle and they see 3 or 4 racks of DDN storage attached to a high performance compute environment, they're looking at it and saying, well, why can't we run some of our other applications on that system? Which means that we need VM support. That's things like not just hosting VMware, Citrix, Microsoft, Oracle, but also being able to support things like then provisioning, inline deduplication, compression at the flash level to get good efficiency out of a solid state array. So those are some of the new things that you're going to see coming out from DDN in the coming year to continue to be super focused on high performance data intensive environments, but making it easier to connect to our technology with any sort of application that's driving those kinds of data demands in the data center. So if you look at the next slide, what you can see there is this is a sample of just looking at a DDN system based on what is called our Wolf Creek platform, and looking at how do we stack up versus some of the leaders that you think about from high performance all flash arrays that should be delivering the best performance on the market. With DDN technology and the fact that we not only just use SSD arrays, but we also have our own hardware that has a super high performance PCIe fabric within it. We're leveraging NVMe. From an interconnect perspective, Ethernet, fiber channel, InfiniBand. We're even designing the system to take care of a custom built board based on Intel's OmniPath architecture. So we have all the hardware to really be fast. We also have 10 plus years of software optimizing I/O and throughput to be able to deliver that really high throughput mixed I/O in our systems. You combine all that together with DDN underlying technology and add in our functionalities, and with about 50 to 70% less hardware and all the features that you're getting from the all-flash arrays, DDN can deliver about 4 times the IOPS, 4 times the virtual machines, 4 times the performance. So you're really not having to have any trade-offs. You don't have to think about, okay, well, which feature set do I want, an enterprise feature set or an HPC throughput workload? DDN is now going to be able to deliver both of those. As you look at slide 7, another really exciting thing that will be coming out in the market through the second half of 2015 that we've been talking about on this vision tour is the general availability of IME. That's our infinite memory engine technology that DDN has been showing in the HPC market since supercomputing back in 2013, talking about how to leverage smart software to dramatically accelerate I/O and fix some of the problems that lead to inefficiencies where you have a computing storage environment designed to be able to run at 50 gigabytes a second, but maybe you're actually in reality only getting, a few hundred megabytes a second, significantly less than what you've designed for. IME software will be coming general availability this fall. Huge change in the supercomputing market and HPC space, ways to get a lot more performance out of a fixed budget without having to throw a lot more hardware at the problem. So really exciting to see this just industry-changing technology finally coming to general availability this year. And then the last thing we've been talking about as you look on to the next slide that talks about WOS. WOS is DDN's object storage. And as you think about a data-intensive environment, we're focusing on how will DDN in the coming year be addressing I/O problems in the data center, mixed workload problems within the storage to really accelerate those environments and be able to connect to any kind of application. But the content sharing, the long-term archive or sharing that content across data centers continues to be as rapidly growing of a use case as anything that we see in the market. So the ability to share the data that's created off of an HPC environment and move it in a university space off to university partners, in a government space to be able to share across data centers, there's quite a few different use cases that we're seeing WOS continuing to grow. And as you go into slide 9, we have an announcement coming out on June 30th. So this month we have an entire new release of WOS coming to market that addresses a handful of different use cases, and really with all the experience that we have in WOS, making it more enterprise adoptable by adding in end-to-end data security so that as the system is moving data into the WOS cluster, sharing data between data centers, or even at the management layer, we have the built-in security to make sure that data is highly protected. We're adding in much more efficiency both on the erasure coding, so that the erasure coding leverages smart technology to not need a one-to-one ratio of physical storage to the amount of copies of data you want protected. So 20% less physical storage needed to store the same number of copies of your data within the WOS object store in this release. And you combine that with a new high-capacity node that we are using for long-term archive that has nearly 800 terabytes, so 768 terabytes in a 4U system. If you think about that kind of storage density, power efficiency that we're bringing into this environment, that you combine both the more efficient erasure coding with this high-density storage node, and that's about a 50% cost savings versus the lowest cost tier of WOS that we have available on the market today. So really looking at those customers who want integrated storage tiering and be able to use their object storage for their long-term data archive. With that, though, anytime you use the word archive, especially in the HPC market, we all know that data integrity is absolutely critical. And looking at how do we keep that data not just secure, but the integrity, protecting against bit rot, bit corruption, is something that we always have to address as we talk about archive. So we've built in something we're calling a data scrubber, which goes right through on a scheduled background process basis and checks the archive for any bit error, corruption, bit rot problems, and can correct them. So think of this as a self-healing archive to be able to make sure we're maintaining the integrity of the system. And then just one other item as you think about how object storage is being leveraged, in a lot of cases we've thought about it as an archive, we've thought about it as a great content distribution tier, but a lot of our customers now are using it as the live environment that they're streaming media off of, streaming courseware off of. So the initial time to data in the object storage system has had a 10x improvement in this release as well. So really getting to less than 100 millisecond time, response time to that first time to data is another area that we've focused on to increase the access times on the way in, and then continue to manage the data in the ways that we want to all the way through to the long-term archive. So as you jump to slide 10, you can see we've really updated the entire WOS ecosystem across the board, as well as continuing to focus on that performance end of the data center, which has led to, for the enterprise, what Alex and I have been out talking to the market about, is really that DDN now has the integrated tiering across from cache to archive to cloud, security across the tiers, and the ability to connect not just HPC workloads and applications, but also the VM environment. So pretty big refresh for DDN across the board that we're excited to have the chance to share with you and your audience, Rich.
Well, thanks for that, Molly. As WOS is something I've seen a number of talks about, and I wanted to ask you about that first. Let's go to the most recent piece, and specifically security. I mean, we've seen a lot of breaches on the past weeks. Federal government employees got supposedly hacked by China. In this view, this holistic view, when you do security like across these tiers, Molly, are you going to give up performance?
No, you're really not. The way we're doing security is kind of a three-pronged approach. And one side of it is just the management layer, thinking HTTPS.
Yeah.
As you think about from node to node security, the SSL type connections, there is a bit of a performance impact as you're moving the data between the nodes. But because erasure coding, what we call global object assured, is designed to very efficiently only move different content that's not already in another node across the wire, we don't actually have to move all the data that's put into the system. It's not a one-to-one usage of the network. So while there is a performance impact, I don't think it will be human noticeable.
Okay. And then in terms of performance, is this really a hierarchical kind of storage management? Does it move it between different storage medias depending on how it's going to be used? And is that automated, or how does it work?
Yeah, so if you think about as data moves into the object store, there's a couple of different ways that the data gets there. It may be from one of DDN's high-performance solutions that manages the data from SSD to spinning disk to object storage, and that's the software tier that's managing the copies of data and where they're sitting, if they're local, if they're remote, which type of storage they're sitting within. In that case, it's an upstream DDN data manager that's managing that system. But for a customer who's just using WOS, it really depends on what application they're leveraging. If it's a cloud service provider, they'll probably set it on a per customer basis to say, this customer has these SLAs, and to meet those SLAs, we need one copy in the performance storage and one in the deeper archive offsite. So it's not managed by WOS, it's by something upstream of WOS that's deciding where the different copies need to be. And then within WOS, we have a policy system that you can also set that it says for every object in this policy, handle it in a specific way. So we can also say, every file that comes into WOS, if you have 40 different applications moving data into it and you want them all to have the same policies, WOS can do that as well, where you say 2 copies on-site, 1 off-site, 2 copies in performance, 1 in archive. So there's 2 different ways. It can be done by an external application or on a policy basis within WOS.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I wanted to ask you a little bit more. I know you're just starting to talk about Wolf Creek, but is it strictly an SSD kind of platform, or is it a hybrid kind of solution?
We'll come out with both options. So the platform has the capability to have NVMe, SSD, and spinning disk in it. And then as we bring different products to market on that platform, you'll see it as the next generation of DDN's SFA, which is our hybrid storage block and file platform. You'll also see it brought out as just an all-flash array, but that will be running different software on it to take advantage of the SSDs optimally. So different software, different operating systems, even potentially for the different kinds of solutions, but all taking advantage of that high-performance hardware backbone.
Terrific. Well, I guess, Molly, you guys will definitely be at ISC in Frankfurt, will you not?
We will, and we'll be having there will be a Wolf Creek box on demonstration there in the environment in our booth,
Okay.
as well as live demos of our IME software and showing off how our different labs are using it in their test beds today.
Well, terrific. Well, I'm going to be there for your user group, which is, I think that's taking
Oh,
place.
great.
Yeah, I think it's right during the ISC conference. So we'll be taping
Yeah,
that.
Tuesday afternoon, I think at 1:00.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. Well, Molly, this is exciting. I mean, thanks for sharing your vision with us today.
You bet. Thanks for having us. Talk to you soon. See you in Frankfurt as well.
Oh, you bet. That's it for the Rich Report. Stay tuned for more news and information on high performance computing.